Arganissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more, bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.arganissima.com. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, and the Fit and Fab channel with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new topic. An interesting topic that we've tackled, a few times in the past, and there's always a need to discuss this topic because it is something that is real. It's happening. It's gonna happen. It's been happening, and we're gonna have to eventually understand it better. With me today, I have someone that is clearly someone who's doing the research in this particular topic, and Marc Nelson. He is the founder of Fellow One Research. And, he's someone that's tackled with the discussion about the obesity and all the stuff that is affecting our lives and health and family members, friends. And it's something that we hear in the media pretty much all the time, whether it's through advertising, whether it's through talk shows, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of debate in there. So Marc, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Welcome to the show, and thank you for being on. And really, I was reading about your stuff, and I really, I admire the work, and I think we needed to have this discussion because I've had few, guests, and we've talked about it from different angles. And obesity, in the fitness world, in the health world, in the wellness world, there's this misconception of what is fit. What is a fit body? What is the weight that's needed? And how is it measured? And, even talk, to medical, doctors and things like that. And there's different measures that they use to determine whether you're obese. Like in my case, I am 205 weight-wise. The way the standard would put me, I'm obese, believe it or not. From my height, 5'8", and the weight that I have, actually I'm supposed to be like 170 or 175. I forgot that. So technically that's what it is. Now, I do not feel that way, but that's just the definition of what it is, at least for me. And it makes no sense for me, at least, to this day. Now, my doctor, who actually understood a little bit more, he's always said that it's all about the muscle, the weight, this, that, and there's other things that, that make you or not make you. And by the way, obesity is not a bad thing. It's just, it's a condition. And we want to clear that, today for folks. And you have a story that led you to this research. You have a story from the beginning that I almost read. I think I read about, some of that. So Marc, why don't you tell us a little bit about how it all started? Who is Marc Nelson and why you do the work you do today?
Yeah. So when I was 8 years old, I was actually a star soccer player on a state championship team. And I began noticing when during shirts off soccer practice, when I was down at the local pool and such, that my body was different than most of my peers. And I was young, so no one really gave it much thought. And I was safely within my BMI weight range. So the doctors didn't think much of it because that's all that they really cared about. And this was in the mid 80s when the BMI had just become the standard. And so, when I would ask them, hey, what's up with all this fat all over my body? And at the time, there was no term for skinny fat. So it was just fat or not fat. But I had fat all over my body where I should have muscle and muscle mass. Yet, because again, I was well within my safe BMI weight range, I was normal and no one gave it a second thought. When I would ask the doctors, when I would ask my parents, anyone, hey, what's up with all this fat all over my body where there should be muscle? I was basically just gaslighted. Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. As you grow, the muscle will grow. But it didn't. As I hit puberty and I was a late bloomer, more fat grew. And I had no muscle on my body. And no one disputes that fact. I was a scrawny, weak kid. Because again, I was so active that I was well within my safe BMI weight range, but I didn't have any muscle on my body. And you can't be an athlete if you don't have muscle on your body. It's just that's a requirement of being an athlete, especially, if you're a soccer player or a football player. If you don't have muscle, you're not going to make it as an athlete in those sports. So as I grew, no muscle grew, and it became harder and harder to keep the fat weight off. And yet every time I'd go and see the doctor again, because I was so active when I was younger, they would say, "Oh, you're well within your safe BMI weight range. Don't worry about it. You're totally normal." And I wasn't. I didn't feel normal. Not having muscle is a big deal. It's a huge problem. And even as I sit here now, if you go in and see your doctor, they are judging you by the 3 standards, which are the body type 1 that you find in any scientific anatomy book, the BMI and the BMR. And if you meet all those standards, really, to meet the body type 1 standard, you have to be within your safe BMI, because none of these standards account for skinny fat. So I'll sort of pause here and see if I'm making any sense, and I'm happy to talk further about all the things I just mentioned.
No. Thank you so much. And so just to clarify for our audiences, BMI is body mass index. I'm assuming that's referring, and BMR is body mass. DR is. That's
correct. And then BMR is basal metabolic rate, and that's the number of calories, the base number of calories daily that your body requires to function.
Got it. All right. Thank you. Just because we might, a lot of us actually see that, probably we would not, again, I'm not judging people. Some people have more knowledge than others in some of these areas, but just for our just typical or regular, folk that may not know those technical acronyms, just wanted to clarify that. But you're talking about something interesting. You're a kid, you're active, you're running, every single form, that's actually the typical, nice and fit or trim, person, right? You run every day. That's what you expect. But the one concept here that you mentioned that is unique is that where is the muscle? So you expect that muscle is going to be there and it's going to just eventually build up on its own. And, as you do this exercise and you get fitter, the muscle will take place, and grow equally. But that's not the case. You just, you talked about fat, but no muscle. Now, can you, in your world, describe to us what is that relationship between the muscle and the fat? Because, most of us would think, well, muscle you build and the fat, we know what it is, comes from food and everything else, which we can talk about that today as a myth, and we can discuss more there. But the just correlation, like, because you don't have the mass or the muscle, then the fat has, a little bit of abundance, right? So let's talk about how that works.
All right. So according to mainstream science and medical doctors, every human being is born into the standard scientific human body anatomy book, body type 1. And that's the image that if you go to any scientifically approved human body anatomy book, that's the image that you see in that book. It's the image with all the muscle and muscle mass fully developed. And that's, from day one, all of us have the default muscle mass relative to that standard body type 1. And of course, as you grow, more muscle grows. But even when I was 8, many of my peers looked just like the standard body type 1. They had all the muscle mass, even though they were 8 and smaller and it wasn't fully built out yet, they still looked like a body type 1. I did not look like a body type 1 at all. And it made me an easy target for bullies because I didn't have the muscle and muscle mass, and therefore I was weaker and I was easy to bully. So when we're talking about muscle and muscle mass, it's very important that folks understand that it is genetic. And we're talking about default muscle mass, that every human being, according to mainstream science and medical doctors, are born into a body type 1, which simply isn't true. Not every human being is born into a body type 1. So what's important to note here is you hear so many people nowadays talking about, well, if you're lacking muscle and muscle mass, then just go to the gym and lift weights and just add it. That's not how it works. It's not. Now, you can definitely go to the gym and you can add muscle and muscle mass. But if you're lacking muscle on your body where you should have muscle and muscle mass because of your genetics, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to add muscle or muscle mass where you have skinny fat. So the body type 1 is the first body type standard. When you go and see your doctor, that is the standard that you and every human being are being held to, is the body type 1. It is the only body type that mainstream science and medical doctors recognize right now. is the body type 1. Because again, it's that same image that you see in the standard human body anatomy book. And crack open any anatomy book that is scientifically approved, and you'll see that image. And that is the image that you and every single human being is being judged by. But the fact of the matter is not all of us are born in the body type 1. Not all of us have the genetics to be a body type 1. Yet that's the standard that every single one of us is being held to. As I sit here now, 40 years later, right? So I have been gaslighted my entire life about not having the muscle and muscle mass that I should, because again, the body type 1 is the standard. We're all body type 1 according to mainstream science and medical doctors. And so long as you're within your safe body mass index, your safe BMI, you are a body type 1. And there's no discussion about that. Again, go and see your doctor and ask them when you're doing your annual checkup, hey, doc, am I normal in terms of my safe BMI? If they say yes, then show them the skinny fat on your body. If you're someone like me, ask them, why do I have skinny fat on my body where I should have muscle and muscle mass? And likely they will tell you, well, just go to the gym and work out and lift weights. And then your next question is why should I have to do that? According to you, according to mainstream science and medical doctors, every human being, myself included, is born in a body type 1. And when I am within my safe BMI weight range, I am already a body type 1 with all the muscle and muscle mass fully developed. So why should I have to go to the gym and lift weights? And there are plenty of people in the world who don't ever have to go to the gym and lift weights because they are truly a body type 1. They already have all the muscle and muscle mass fully developed. They don't have to go and lift weights. Yet there are many people like me who all I've done is gone to the gym. I'm now 48. And I have spent years in the gym, years upon years upon years. And I have never, ever, not one time ever looked like a body type 1. I've been able to put on muscle and muscle mass on specific areas of my body, some more than others, especially if what little muscle that I had on my body from day one, my default muscle, I had a tendency to add muscle there more readily than places where I have skinny fat. But I've never looked like a body type 1. And going to the gym and lifting weights adamantly, diligently, following a very careful diet, etc., never, ever, ever even brought me close to being a body type 1. So muscle mass, muscle and muscle mass and fat go hand in hand with genetics and skinny fat. If you're someone like me who has skinny fat on your body, where you should have muscle and muscle mass, you are highly prone to putting on fat in those areas. It makes it harder to keep the fat weight off. It makes it harder to not become overweight or obese. And that's just a genetic fact that right now mainstream scientists and medical doctors are completely ignoring. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it, even though we know it's a fact that the obesity epidemic is getting worse day by day. It's only getting worse. Billions of dollars are spent every year on research to figure out why. They don't know why. And yet here we are at Fellow One Research, and we have the answers. We know why. We know that skinny fat is genetic. And we know that going into the gym and lifting weights does not get rid of skinny fat. There's no FDA approved method to get rid of skinny fat, whether it's, and so in terms of skinny fat, the definition is cellulite, thin fat, loose skin, saggy skin, crepy skin, and normal weight obesity. There is no FDA approved means to get rid of those. So again, when you go in and see your doctor and they tell you you're totally normal, you're within your safe BMI, and then I say, hey, well, why do I have all this skinny fat all over my body? As I sit here now, like I have been for the last 40 plus years, I get gaslighted and said, oh, don't worry about it, or oh, it must be something that you're doing, you're cheating on your diet, exercise, or lifestyle. And they just won't hear, la, 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 la. They just won't hear that it's genetics and that there are different body types and there's a scientific reason why there are body types, yada, yada. So I'll sort of pause here and see if I'm making any sense.
Oh, thank you, Mark. And you hit a lot of items that I'd like to dissect a little bit. So first things first, I mean, the keyword genetics, everything is based on genetics. I mean, that is the blueprint of human, and all creation. I mean, word creation here, being in the scientific mode, not the religious aspect. So just to keep it that. All right. So just not to confuse people, we're not talking about, although we can debate that discussion later, but really for physical anatomy purposes, we are made of DNA, and DNA is actually what contributes to everything that attributes to our look, feel, size, all the whole nine.
That's
It is
right.
prone to your chromosomes coming from your parents. So that's just standard for, just basic anatomy that all of us would probably remember from elementary basics. And some of us expanded on that, in our career paths or school, or even through the media and stuff. But and now we know about the genome, we know about all the advances, that have been happening in the genetic world. But, and I want to touch that with you later in the discussion. So that is a big component. And to your point, until recently, most of the people, or at least the discussion was not about that until maybe a couple of decades ago, where genetics have become more of a topic of the discussion, and understanding that this is what controls some of everything we do and how we do it, whether it's your size, your stamina, your metabolism, this, that, the other, even diseases and illnesses that you may be prone to, right? So that's something that's been discussed more recently, and I guess that research is going to keep going. But that's one part. But then and by the way, thank you for defining the skinny fat, concept, because when I hear skinny fat, it's like almost a contradiction. You know what I mean? When you think about it, right? You think about skinny fat, like, well, that's not obese, it's not fat, but it all ties into the same based on the definition. They're all pretty much in one bucket.
And
am I getting that right?
And so that is mostly right, albeit normal weight obesity is a type of skinny fat. And the definition of obesity is having too much fat on your body. It's not being overweight. And it's one reason why the BMI is not accurate, because there are people like Dwayne Johnson, who is all muscle. That dude's all muscle. He's got more muscle on his body than the standard body type 1, but he's still a body type 1. And yet if you were to run his BMI, he would likely fall into the overweight or obese columns of his BMI. But that dude is most obviously, not obese or overweight. So obesity is defined as having too much fat on your body. Normal weight obesity is defined as being within your safe BMI, yet somehow magically, right, you still have too much fat on your body, which again is something that is an oxymoron. Right? Skinny fat is like the ultimate oxymoron, right? But that's what normal weight obesity is you're well within your safe, or you are within your safe BMI, yet you have too much fat on your body somehow. When mainstream science and medical doctors said you're a body type 1 when you're within your safe BMI. So is that making sense?
Yeah, thank you. And Dwayne, obviously, Johnson is we all love him. I mean, the dude is The Rock is the man. Thumbs up to him. We love him, and you're right. He puts a lot of work, and we see it. I mean, that's his thing. And to your point, again, unless he comes out and tells us like this was my BMI and I was told otherwise, maybe we can have a message to him from here. But the fact of the matter is, to your point, it's just like I'll give you again, Dwayne Johnson is a clearly mass of great muscle. I mean, at least you can see it defined, right? Body mass, body type 1. But many people, like, again, I just mentioned in my own example where my doctor is like, you're like 30 pounds over, 40 pounds over. I don't see the fat, the weight but when you see that you're obese, that's a problem, right? And it drives you nuts. Like, well, I'm not able to lose this, and my age is not helping. My metabolism is not kicking as it used to be. And all of the above, like metabolism is a key element. As you age, your body is not going to function the same way, no matter how you do it. Some people have a faster metabolism than others, and you said it like you're a slow bloomer early on, but some people are fast, some people are slow. It doesn't matter. There's different conditions and reasons why that happens, but there are standard things that happen to all of us, right? That your age, there's a process, and as you your body is slowing down for a lot of things, and your intake is also important, what you take and stuff. But we can talk about diet also briefly. But I wanted to go back to one element you stated about you spend a lot of time at the gym just so you can almost catch up, or at least just to maintain, the build up. Is that what the purpose of that was?
Yeah, and because in terms of your metabolism, muscle plays a direct key role in metabolism. So science recognizes that 1 pound of muscle burns 6 calories daily, but 1 pound of skinny fat and fat only burns 2 to 3 calories daily. So if you're missing muscle mass where you should have muscle mass and in place of it is skinny fat, you're burning less calories daily just relative to your standard BMR. And none of these calculations, the body type 1, the BMI, the BMR, none of them take into account skinny fat. So if you are following your BMI and you're following your BMR as calculated by the standard, which is the Mifflin, St. Jeor, and the Harris Bandit activity BMRs, you're likely still eating too many calories daily if you have skinny fat where you should have muscle. And the more fat that you have on your body, again, the less calories that you burn, yada, yada. So this is the problem with these 3 body type standards. And that's what we're not knocking the fact that we have these 3 body type standards, the body type 1, the BMI, and the BMR. We're knocking the fact that they are inaccurate and no one wants to hear otherwise. Our research here at Fellow One Research is to strengthen those standards so that we can better understand and calculate them so that they are more accurate for every individual person relative to your specific genetics and body type. So if you are a body type 2, 3, or 4, I was born in a body type 4, right? Then at least my calculations, my BMI, my body type 1, my BMI and my BMR are correctly calculated so that I'm not following the body type 1 BMR and eating too many calories daily and wondering why I'm still putting on weight and becoming overweight or obese. And as you age, it is a fact that as you get up over the age of 40, you begin losing a bit of muscle every year. And again, the less muscle that you have, the less calories that you burn, the more that it negatively affects your metabolism, yada, yada. So people need to understand the importance of muscle. And it's not just your metabolism. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to be an athlete, a true athlete, if you want, a pro NFL player or a star soccer player or whatever, you've got to have muscle on your body, and it's got to be evenly built across your body like it is on a body type 1. And you can see this, especially with soccer players. Go out and find any professional soccer player. Like it is less than 1% of pro soccer players who are a body type 2. All the rest are body type 1s. You see more who are in the NFL because you can have offensive linemen or defensive linemen who are body type 2s. But all the athlete positions, are a body type 1, yada, yada. So muscle is not just vital to your metabolism. It is vital to being an athlete. It's the armor of the human body. It helps you hold the energy, yada, yada, yada. So am I making any sense here?
Yes, Mark. Yes. And actually, I wanted to thank you for breaking it down. I mean, to your point, the muscles, function is important. And to your point, the lack of it will obviously have some sort of an impact on how you will, I guess, your body is going to, compose itself with fat or no fat or lesser or higher level. But also you mentioned very clearly at the age of 40, it's a very, I know that for a fact because I've crossed that line a decade ago. So I know exactly how I felt. Like everything just like happens after that date, and it's not the same. You can double up the workout and maybe you get some results. It's like you almost have to triple, double to keep the same. And that's at every stage, right? You hit the 50s. There's another stage. You're not there yet, so I don't want to warn you, but just beware. But you know what? There is. Obviously, you got to keep healthy and all the other stuff that we need to do in general. But that's not going to change, to your point, the genetics and what you are really in terms of your body dynamics, right? And that's something. But just before we go there, I know you've covered the reason behind you went into this research. Now the technical part of it. How did you actually, come up with, this? It was personal to you, but then you took it to the next level. Because some people say, well, what is the background? Are you a physician? Are you this or the other? Because you know how that goes. That debate's always there. Like, well, who are you as an organization? So if you don't mind, just give us some of that juice to highlight on Fellow One.
So when I graduated college, I took a job at CU Boulder doing scientific research. And I wasn't there long because I realized rather quickly that I wanted to do my own research. And it was very personal to me because I was dealing with all this. But when I was at CU, I had really good health insurance, and I was just sick and tired of all of the negative health effects I was feeling from my body. And I was eating a super healthy diet. I had switched to an all organic diet, and I had tried every diet from vegan to vegetarian to omnivore to carnivore. I tried them all and nothing worked. So I finally said, you know what, I've got to go down and figure out what this is about. Science should be able to run all the tests and figure out what's wrong with you. So I went down and saw my doctors, and they sent me to a bunch of specialists, and they poked and prodded me. And by the time I was done with all this, they came back and said, you're totally normal, don't worry about it. And they gave me some Tagamints for my heartburn and didn't address the depression or aches and pains or any of the other stuff that I was dealing with, and just sent me home with this acid reflux drug and said, you're totally normal. And at that point I said, no more. I've had enough. No one's listening. They don't understand. I experience this every day of my life. All of the aches and pains, the severe soul-crushing depression, the heartburn, the indigestion, just all of it was just awful. And I was being told, no, you're totally normal. You aren't experiencing that. It's all in your head. And it wasn't. And so that was when I said, I'm done with mainstream science and medical doctors for the time. There's an answer to this. No one's listening. I'm not the only person who is experiencing this, because I had, on my journey from high school to college into my adult years, I had met countless people who were experiencing similar things. And that's when I said, the only way that I'm going to figure this out is to start my own research. And so I opened up Fellow One Research, and that's really how things started. So, and I've been doing this now for nearly 25 years. And it was a very personal thing. And what I had figured out along the way was that none of the current, the accepted body type standards, like the endomorph, ectomorph, mesomorph, all that was total nonsense. It is total nonsense. It was debunked long ago. It's not based on any science whatsoever. None. Zero. It is arbitrary, subjective shapes that are total nonsense. And it's no different with the hormone body types or the Kibbe body types or the triangle body types or the 10 body types or any other body types out there that I looked at. Because again, when you're dealing with this, you will look and try and find what the answer is. And none of those held the answer, because there was no science behind any of them. There was no logic or reason behind any of them. They were just nonsense, arbitrary, subjective shapes, which once I was done looking at those, once I was done trying every diet and every exercise, when I was in college, I mimicked some of my friends. I would go down to the gym. They were all body type 1s. And I would follow their gym routine. I'd follow their diet. I ate their supplements. And I was down there every day with them doing it. And as they got more ripped and they added more muscle, I went from having a sparrow chest to having a raven's chest, just a larger bird chest. Very little change for me. And when I would ask, them or my doctor or my parents, what's going on? Nobody had any answers. So what I'm getting at is that I was left with no other choice than to start this research, because there were no answers. There was no science that answered any of this. Even now, when I go and see a doctor, what they say to me is, no, you're totally within your safe BMI weight range. You're totally fine. And I can show them the skinny fat on my body still. And there's a lot less. I've done a lot of hard work over the last 25 years to reduce the amount of skinny fat on my body. I've done that through proprietary experimental exercises that we are working on here, which I'm okay with maybe talking about later. But what I want to focus on is your body is genetic, that you need to accept your body for what it is. You need to figure out what the best diet, exercise, and lifestyle is for your specific body, so that you can be as healthy as possible relative to your genetic body type. And that's our main focus right now, because as you probably know, up on social media, all we have is folks who are filtering and photoshopping images. And if they were lucky enough to be born in a body type 1, good for them. But they're pushing all this nonsense about everyone can be just like me. When no, I cannot be just like you. If you're a body type 1, being a body type 4, I've worked very hard to work my way towards a body type 2. Right? But I could never be a body type 1 just by following these nonsense regimens of, these crazy fad diets and exercise, yada, yada, that you see up on social media or in the media in general. So I'll sort of pause here and see what questions you might have.
No, thanks so much. I mean, you bring in some heavy elements in the discussion, and first of all, I appreciate you just sharing the context of how it all started for you, the research. And by the way, kudos to you, because to your point, sometimes that is actually the history, right, of a lot of invention. When things are not there, someone takes the opportunity and becomes the researcher, and eventually there is a whole new, world, out there that follows. Whether it's from early medicine, Eastern medicine, to many other discoveries in a lot of areas. People just such as yourself, just it's not happening, let me do it. And I'm not going to even compare this, but similar. Like, I used to think there is no health channel, so I did this, because I wanted to bring this almost same concept. Like, you think there's a lack of something, and no one is. You don't figure out that someone is doing it. What's the best deal? Let me just get started with it, and it takes you to the next level. And 25 years later, and you're doing this, and I'm sure you've impacted a lot of lives just through the research, and and you're doing more of the work, sharing this value with the audiences, all the world here, worldwide. But you talked about something very, very powerful. I think that is we need to take a minute just to highlight it, which is, yes, we don't look the same. We don't have to look exactly like a particular picture that is being designed for us. The marketing power is there, and we know it sells. From models, and this debate's been going for a minute. I mean, talking about female models, like there was a specific shape, even guys, there's a specific shape that you have to have a six-pack, blah, 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 blah. And everybody's dying. But the fact is, not everybody can maintain that. And even if you did, it's temporary and it's not going to stick with you. All you do is off on your diet for a couple of months, and the whole flap is there, and it's one flap, as opposed to six abs, even for a man, right? It doesn't matter. For women, same thing. My wife and I, we do have a fitness brand, and that's one thing. Sometimes, and we joke about it. Some people look, well, if you don't look chiseled, you're not a good instructor. You're not going to get us the result. This is not about being chiseled. Not everybody's body, metabolism, is the same. So therefore, what you need to be is, within, to your point, a norm. You don't have to you have to be cardio well and all the other stuff, and you maintain, and that's in shape. Not necessarily having a cut body and everything and 0 ounces of fat. I mean, it is very difficult to have, and I love that, because I had a show with a guest, and I enjoyed her show before, because it was discussion like, feel good in your body and work towards better body as you do, but don't have to be, almost, pushed into this, type of body that you probably would never fit in. I mean, it's like having a size 30 in pants, and you're in the 40 and you want to fit in. And good luck with that. I mean, it's going to take you years, if any, to get back in. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So and if it does, it's going to be the exception of the exception. So it's not like something that you want to dive and drive yourself crazy. You just got to maintain where you are healthy. To your point, your body is good, your cardio is good, your blood and stuff, everything is working. And that is important for people, because at the end of the day, to your point, between the filters, between, everybody's trying to sell the model fit, concept, and everybody's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to look. Somebody's going in and they ripped. Yeah, well, you ripped this lot. Like you mentioned, the NFL guys. Those guys are big, and they'll take you down. I don't care how much. They'll take you down and drop you, right? So it's not always about the muscle. And that's the other thing. Everybody has some level of muscle, to a degree, right? So the question is how much of it, and you can build up the muscle. But at the end of the day, the body has certain anatomy pieces to it. And you're right, there's not one size fits all here. There's different types. And you did a great job. You said you went from 4 to 2. And that's over the years with all your work and things like that. And that is something commendable, because people today could be in that same position. Some people actually are the reverse. They're just getting the weight. And you mentioned something very easy earlier, that the society today, there's a lot of obesity trends. And there's factors to that. I mean, the food and stuff, and maybe some of that is impacting our genetics too. But the fact of the matter, it is, obviously you have to stay away from the factors that they're just going to, if you're easily, it's like diabetes, right? If you're diabetic or you're prone to diabetes, you're not going to keep, eating a lot of sugar and just take all the bad things that can escalate or speed up the process for you to get the diabetes type 1 or 2. Same concept. If you know that you don't have type 1 or 2 and you're at this level, you cannot take some of the non-healthy stuff that that's available and just kind of build on it, because what's going to happen is going to speed up the process where you're going to wind up in that situation that's going to be hard to come back from. So again, I just wanted to really highlight that part, because that's important for people to listen. You are as good as you are in the body that you are, and if it is medically not fit or whatever the case may be, and you need to work on it, you work on it. But you don't have to be doing it just because you want to conform to what society is stating to be. I think that's the message here, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mark?
That is, and it's why we came up with the 4 body type definition, so that folks could scientifically understand why is my body type different than this unfair standard that's always being pushed in the media and advertising up on social media, which is the body type 1. And we know that it's the body type 1 because go up on social media, and when you see, if it's a Kim Kardashian filtering her images, or whoever else is filtering it, they aren't filtering it to look like a body type 2, 3, or 4. They're filtering it to look like a body type 1. Because that's the standard that all of us are being pushed to actually meet, because that's the current scientific standard, the only body type standard. But it's not the only standard. It's why we're doing the actual research here. So we came up with the 4 body type standards. The body type 1 is just the body type 1. It means that you have all muscle and muscle mass fully developed relative to the 26 vertebrae in your back. And we chose the vertebrae in the back because that's how the body is structured. It's the scaffolding of the body relative to the bones, to the spine, yada, yada. And all of it originates with the vertebrae in the back. So we know that we have 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 1 sacrum, and 1 coccyx. And we broke that down into the 4 body types. So again, a body type 1 means that you have all the vertebrae and muscle mass relative to those vertebrae are fully developed. And it's possible that you can be a body type 1, and we have this on a scale of 1 to 10. If you're a 9 or a 10 in terms of muscle mass development, and you have all the vertebrae fully developed, then you're a body type 1. But it is possible to be a body type 1 and have a little bit of underdeveloped muscle or muscle mass. But you can still be a body type 1. A body type 2, you would be 1 to 8 vertebrae are underdeveloped to some degree. And that means that, on that scale of 1 to 10, you would be an 8 or less for 1 to 8 vertebrae. A body type 3 is 9 to 17 vertebrae are underdeveloped, and a body type 4, which is what I was born in, is 18 to 26 vertebrae underdeveloped. So it's important that we have definitions to understand things, because that's truly how we understand things. So if you're someone like me who was born in a body type 4, yet you're being held to the body type 1 standard in every way, not just relative to the BMI or the BMR, but I had to quit soccer, which I loved playing, because I didn't have any muscle in my body. Yet, according to my parents and the doctors, I was just lazy. I'm just not working hard enough. I am being held to a standard I can never possibly ever meet, because it's my genetics, and obesity is common in our family. No one disputes this. It is a common genetic factor in our family, yet somehow magically, because I was really good at soccer when I was 8, it didn't apply to me that obesity was common in our family. I simply wasn't excelling at soccer by the time I was 13 or 14 or 15, because I wasn't working hard enough. And that's all that anyone would hear. So being gaslighted my entire life, just like so many people out there in the world, if you're up on social media and you see these images of a body type 1, and folks are saying the only reason that you don't look like a body type 1 is because you're eating too many calories daily, because you're cheating on your diet, exercise, or lifestyle. As soon as you stop doing that and you get within your safe BMI, you'll be a body type 1. All you have is folks, whether they are up on social media, whether they've taken our scientific body type quiz. Up on our site, we have nearly 500 scientific body type quizzes now. And all we have is folks who say, I was never a body type 1. My entire life, it doesn't matter how hard I work in my diet, exercise, or lifestyle. When I get within my safe BMI weight range, I've never looked like a body type 1. I've always had skinny fat on my body. And if you're a body type 3 or 4 like me at 4, I had skinny fat all over my body. Yet it was my fault. I was not a body type 1 because somehow I was cheating on my diet, exercise, or lifestyle, even though I was within my safe BMI weight range. And that's all that anyone would hear. So I'm not the only person who's tired of being gaslighted. There is a world full of people who are being gaslighted about not being a body type 1, and somehow magically it's their fault. It's my fault. When I followed all your rules, I got within the safe BMI weight range. I've eaten a healthy diet. I followed a healthy exercise regimen. I followed a healthy lifestyle regimen. And yet I've never looked like a body type 1. So what we want here at Fellow One Research is, one, to strengthen those body type standards. The body type 1, the BMI and the BMR need to all calculate in skinny fat. We want to make it clear to people that the body type 1 is not the only body type out there, so we can stop these unfair standards, which have led to the mental health crisis in young people who are following these crazy fad diets, these phasey fad exercise routines, yada, yada, that they will never be able to actually do. Many of them are unhealthy anyways, but they will never be a body type 1 relative to their genetic body type. And we need to understand this and accept it so that we can get the average person back to a state of health in general. So am I making any sense here?
Oh, Mark, you make a lot of sense, and I commend you for the work you do and being a voice to share, in the reality of things to the world. Because to your point, I'm going to make a joke, but it is true, and I think you go to the beach, you go on a cruise, you go to the pool, you're not seeing a lot of the body type 1, which is basically, and people are comfortable in their skin, and that's the beauty of it. But the fact is, the movies show like a certain look that you're going to look at the beach, but that's not the reality when you go to the beach. Like, where are they? They're not there. Or some of them may be, still in their best, shape, whatever. But the fact that that's not your 99%. That's actually your 10% or less, even 1%. So just for the audiences, feel good, whatever you are. To your point, you got to do your work. You got to do your, due diligence with your health in terms of, exercising, eating and stuff. But to your point, like, no matter how you played, if it is in your family and obesity is something that is genetically inherited, there's not much you can do about that. Just like having hormones, like, imbalances, right? If you have thyroid, hypo, if you have hypo, it's a problem, right? If you have hyper, it's a problem. You're either going to, lose so much mass or you're going to gain so much weight at the same time. And you can balance it with meds, with exercise, with the proper diet. Those are just the tools that you use to just condition and maintain. But if you just drop one or the other, and I love what you said about people literally killing themselves, whether in terms of exercise or diets, just to fit, a certain look. And on the flip side, some of that look, sometimes people go so extreme that they lose so much weight and stuff, which is not healthy, again, on the flip side. So you go from one and the other, and how long would you be able to maintain that? I mean, we're talking decades of life here. People only look at that transitional time where they are, and everybody's peer pressure, whatever, at school, or pushing, oh, you're supposed to do this, yeah, but there's going to be a year, 2 years from now, you're not going to be here, and I'm going to be the one who have to deal with all the ramifications of what I did to my body. And especially when you go drastically changing it from one end to the other, and just kind of like, almost like, taking a body, like you take an element, anything, cold heat. I mean, that stuff will eventually crack up, right? That's what you're doing here. You go one extent to the extent, you drop food, you drop this long-time diets, or like not eating, or just restricting. And you said it, you tried all of them. But if you don't understand the genetic piece of this game, first of all, if we don't understand genetics, there's a good chance we don't understand human beings. I mean, because everything, your eyesight, your disease level, or illnesses, what you're prone to, can be also, discovered through the genetics. And some doctors got getting into that point. I mean, I happen to be lucky. My provider, my doctor, was a good friend. He actually goes through the genetic level and he reviews a little bit of that. So he gives you a projection of where you are in terms of 10 years. But he uses some new stuff, new studies and things. But to your point, the majority or the massive word out there is not really up to that genetic level where they see you. They don't use just that BMI and those standards. They go beyond that, but not all of them are doing it. So that leads me to the question. I know what your purpose for Fellow One research. Now, you said there's quizzes that you actually have on the site where people can go in and really, answer questions, and hopefully they get an idea like where they really fit and they stand. Is that what I'm getting from the quizzes?
That's right. So we have the scientific body type quiz, which it looks at the genetics, your vertebrae, your underdeveloped, if you have any muscle and muscle mass relative to the vertebrae. We calculate the latest science-based diet, exercise, and lifestyle scores. We've gone out and pulled all the latest science and built our own algorithms so that we can calculate, are you eating a healthy diet, exercise, and lifestyle, yada, yada. And we'll break it all down for you on your profile page. We don't require any any face in your images so that you can maintain your privacy. You can use a pen name so you can maintain your privacy. And we are working on funding to upgrade all of this so that we can make it more user friendly. So that's the scientific body type quiz. We also have the scientific weight loss diary, which we're not in competition with things like the Apple Health app or Calorie King or MyFitnessPal. All those work symbiotically with our scientific weight loss program. And the idea is that you scientifically track your diet, exercise, and lifestyle data so that you can see your actual progress. You can see your actual images change over time. You can share your profile with your doctor or fitness trainer or dietitian and family and friends. They can all join the conversation for free, yada, yada, so that you're actually tracking the scientific data, and it's not just this willy-nilly, haphazard way of, I'm going to lose weight, but I'm just going to follow this crazy diet or this, whatever. It's a scientific way to understand and hold yourself accountable. All that being said, I do want to clarify a few things. One, thanks to our scientific our scientific body type quiz, our current research data shows that roughly 30% of the population are body type 1. And that may change over time as we get more data. But then a body type 2 sits around 45%. Body type 3 sits around, I want to say 18%, and the body type 4 sits around 7%. So we have a general understanding of the breakdown of the body types right now. And again, as more data rolls in, as the years pass, that will likely change. But it's important that folks do understand, as you were saying earlier, right? It's a relative minority of the population is a body type 1. And we've got to stop holding everyone to this standard that's leading to just so much unhealth globally. The other thing that I'd like to say is on one hand, we support the body positive movement because genetics are what they are, and we need to accept our body for what it is. On the other hand, obesity is a disease, and that is a fact. And it's not acceptable to make obesity normal. It's just not. It would be like saying we're going to make cancer normal because it's so common. Let's just make it normal. That's not how things work. We've got to understand that as a body type 4, I always worked very hard to be within my safe BMI weight range, even though, in all honesty, there was a time in my life when I reached nearly 300 pounds. I was pushing 270 plus with the times that I actually weighed myself, because when you get up at that weight, your scale won't handle it. So I had to go down to the laundromat and get on the scale, which is embarrassing. But what I'm getting at is when I was that weight, when I was pushing 300 pounds, I felt the best I ever felt my entire life. And I really didn't want to lose that weight because I felt so good. All the issues that I had, from depression to heartburn to digestive issues to the aches and pains, all of it went away. And I felt great, but I hated how I looked. Hated it. And I knew that, being that obese was not healthy. And I didn't stay there. I lost the weight because it was during the time where I was doing all this research and figuring it all out. And I came back down into my safe BMI, and all the same health issues came back, and I but I knew that being obese wasn't the answer either. So what we're trying to do here with the body type standards is figure out what is healthy. Can I be a body type 3 and actually be in the overweight or obese columns of my BMI and still be healthy? Is that possible? Well, we know that the obesity paradox is true for older people, especially folks who are over 65, who, if you are obese and over 65, it's actually healthier for you to maintain your weight, even if you are obese, than to lose that weight. And we don't fully understand why, but the research here, fellow One Research, is showing that a lot of it has to actually do with just being able to hold the energy day in and day out, being able to feel comfortable in your body. So we have a long way to go, and there's a lot of research that has to be done here. But please, let's be careful and let's not normalize the disease of obesity. We need to figure out what are the actual healthy standards for each body type. The first thing that we have to actually do, though, is get science and medical doctors to recognize the fact that there are 4 different body types, and they are scientifically based. And once we can understand those, how do we define health relative to those 4 body types? So that's our ultimate goal. And the way that we're doing that is with the scientific body type quiz, scientific weight loss diary, which again, you can access up on the Fellow One Research, the Fellow One website, the fellowone.com website, excuse me.
Thank you, Mark. And so just one question that comes to mind now that's the research you do, and the objective ultimately is to have it ready where people can start using those metrics, or at least incorporate those into the standard review. When you go to a doctor, they use more than just the basics. They'll have an additional set of data that can, if you don't fit in here, then this is where we need you to be, and this is now accurate, and we have this demonstrated over a few years of research. Just like everything else, over the years it becomes the standard operating system, and it gets standardized until the next research comes on. So I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that's really the core here that we'd like to establish. So thank you. So I got it. That's good. Well, again, and I appreciate it, because to your point, there is definitely, this is not something that is a question of it doesn't exist. It is here. It is not going anywhere, and unless somebody tackles it and we have it incorporated in the general preventative medicine and all that stuff, it's going to be a difficult task, and then people will be marginalized often more than they are. And to your point, they'll drive themselves nuts to figure it out, to try to get better. You know what I mean? And sometimes that is a problem. So that was just, I just wanted to clarify that. Now, do you have any partnership with doctors and stuff that actually maybe using some of this research currently just as a test run?
We are working on that, but it has been very difficult to get anyone to hear anything that we say, because and we understand it. So doctors are held to this impossible standards themselves. They are expected to know everything about everything, right? And in this world that we live in now, especially here in the United States, people want to be able to eat and do whatever they want, and they just want to go to their doctor. And if there's a problem, they want their doctor to fix it so they can go back and continue eating and doing whatever they want without any lifestyle changes whatsoever. And that mentality's got to change. What that has led to is holding doctors to these impossible standards of, I went to my doctor and I expected them to fix my problem, and they didn't fix it. It just got worse, yada, yada. And it's like, well, the problem here is the average person has got to take more responsibility for their health. You've got to take more responsibility for the things that you're putting into your body day in and day out. And until the average person takes more responsibility, there is this unfair standards on doctors and the medical personnel and just the healthcare system in general, which makes it very difficult for research like this to break in, because doctors have to have these standards that are real standards that they can hold to and that aren't questioned. Because as soon as you start questioning standards, it makes them less accurate, and then folks become less trustworthy of doctors, yada, yada. So we are working on breaking in and finding ways to bring this to the to the medical establishment in general. But we run into serious hurdles and headbutting because we already have standards, right? And until we here at Fellow One Research can prove otherwise, which proving something takes an immense amount of research and data and just work in general. And until we can do that, no one really wants to hear it because, again, doctors, they have to have standards, which is why we're not knocking the fact that they have standards, but it makes it very hard to change a doctor's mind in general, because until you have the actual, the full-on proving research that shows that what we're talking about is right, they have to stick to their standards. And those standards, as accurate as they are right now, even now when I go in to see the doctor or you or anyone else, those are the standards. And until we can bring forward enough research, right, then they're not going to actually listen. And the problem with that is until you have enough research, it's hard to get funding because folks are like, oh, you're just a bunch of nonsense. So we are working on it, but we need people to understand that it's a very difficult thing to change the current science, to evolve the current science so that it becomes the actual standard. So if you want to help with that, please go to our website, take the scientific biotype quiz, donate. There is a link up on the site where you can donate to help with our research, yada, yada. But we have a very strong base right now. We are working on funding to strengthen the website, to strengthen up our scientific biotype quiz, our scientific weight loss diary, and we're also working on a machine learning AI app that will help strengthen all this as well. You can help by going to the website and donating and taking part in all of our research. So is that making sense?
Yeah, well, definitely, Mark. I mean, it's funny you said that because historically, when a new thing is on the horizon, the standard, is not to accept it or to react to it. I mean, this is like, well, the Earth is actually, orbiting around the sun, So it's the same concept. Like, no, you are, charlatan. You're lying. It's magic. Blah blah blah. Who are you? That's the same concept. I mean, that repeats itself in a lot of things until it becomes. But what I would do recommend is maybe, while maybe the doctor world or the medicine piece is more challenging, for funding purposes, I mean, you might want to reach out to insurance companies who actually are the payers, and they do want people to actually be healthier. So maybe there's a balance there that can help, the research. And also, like, by the way, this is not any different from like Eastern medicine or naturopathic, stuff where people are still being, or Ayurvedic and all those other, types of, medicine levels that are not as, welcome in the mainstream, concept. But the fact of the matter, they're still out there, they're doing the work. And maybe that's a partnership that you potentially can have, because those are areas that kind of touch on similar concepts. And this is research that can benefit them as well. So again, there's just a suggestion that comes to mind as we're having this discussion. And I know there are doctors out there that they do know that maybe there's a need for more standards and more, they can figure it out. I mean, this is not, surprising to them, especially now with the advancement of genetics. I think there's more people that probably be open to this. But again, the word is here, and we're spreading the word. And hopefully someone can hear this and say, hey, maybe let me just see what this is all about. And you never know. And that's really what it takes, to get things done. And again, you're doing the work. That's all that matters. Somebody's going to hear it. Somebody's going to see the value. Somebody will actually, assist and maybe become the determining factor and the turning, of this becoming part of the standardized, version of where you see your weight and your health. So,
and it's shows like this that really help out. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for talking about this, because it really is. I know that you had said earlier that you started the show because you felt like, there really is no where to go and get health advice and such. And you're right. Even now up on the internet, you can go and do a search, and there are solid sites like Healthline or WebMD and such, but they don't always get it right, and there's no way to really talk with anybody on any of the sites. And so it's one of the reasons why we're building the website that we have built, is because folks can come and they can interact and they can learn about science-based diet, exercise, and lifestyle. But it's shows like this that really help spread the word and help people better understand what real health is, so that hopefully we can evolve and change and make life better for everyone, and not just those who have money.
Well, Mark, thank you. And by the way, our motto is time to evolve. I mean, we have to evolve from where we are at all times, and educate, enlighten, inspire, motivate. And you know what? It is a platform, and yeah, I mean, this is an opinion as well. I mean, it's not an opinion, but when we talk, it's our version of things. But there are always people. I mean, the idea is you want to hear the other side, at least to hear it. You don't have to accept it. Sometimes just by hearing about it, like that sparks a little bit of a question mark, and that question mark presents curiosity, and curiosity takes care of the rest. And that's all it takes. It just, all it needs is like maybe one person who's like, I heard this, maybe I'll share with this one. And before you know it, someone's like, oh my God, this is what I was looking for. It made sense. You never know what's that next move or next show or next, item that's going to make a change in somebody's life or other people's life. And, I do different shows. Like I have this great show that we do monthly with Dr. Heim. He's a psychiatrist. And it's very simple. The doctor puts his time, and every show we expect to touch one life or two lives, and that's great. If we touch more, that's even better. But the fact is, one life at a time, one person at a time, and you never know what that is going to take in the next few years. It's just like, a domino effect that you don't see until you see that whole big, effect in the bat. And sometimes you plant the seed and you forget about it and you have a tree when you come back. This is the concept here. So thanks, Mark, so much for being with us and sharing your valuable insights. And thank you for the work you do. I mean, 25 years of doing this, and that's a lot of time that you're dedicated for, noble cause, because you've been there and there are people out there. So that's powerful.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this show. And yes, please spread the word. And, if you think that this is something of interest that you can participate in or share with somebody that may be interested, please feel free. The description of the show, the description of the show will have the actual website link, and you can go and do the quizzes just for personal, insights. And maybe, somewhere their business, president of a company, a doctor, somebody out there listening to this, see it, talk to Mark, see what he is about, and maybe there's a discussion that can be had, and that's it, right? So that being said, we're basically closing our show today. So we'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new guest, new topic. Bye for now.